The afternoon sun filtered through the large windows of Children's Hospital Oakland, casting gentle rays across the pediatric oncology ward. The familiar sounds of the hospital, soft beeping of monitors, hushed conversations between nurses, and the occasional laughter from the playroom created a rhythm that patients and staff had grown accustomed to. 8-year-old Riley Curry walked hand in hand with her mother, Aisha, down the polished hospital corridor. Her small backpack bounced with each step, filled with coloring books and small gifts she had insisted on bringing. Riley had been asking her parents for months to visit the children's hospital, having heard about kids her age who were fighting serious illnesses. "Mommy, do you think they'll like the friendship bracelets I made?" Riley asked, her voice carrying that innocent concern only children possess. Aisha squeezed her daughter's hand gently. "I think they'll love them, sweetheart. But remember, some of the children might be tired or not feeling well today." As they approached the children's activity room, Riley could hear voices and see colorful decorations through the doorway. Inside, about 15 children of various ages sat in a circle, some in wheelchairs, others on colorful beanbags, with a few lying on mobile hospital beds. Their faces showed the telltale signs of their battles, some bald from chemotherapy, others pale and thin, but all wearing expressions of curiosity as they noticed the new visitors. Maria Santos, the hospital's child life specialist, greeted them warmly. "Children, we have some very special visitors today. This is Riley, and she wanted to come spend some time with all of you." Riley felt a flutter of nervousness in her stomach as all eyes turned to her. She had performed countless times with her family at Warriors games and public events, but this felt different, more important somehow. These weren't fans cheering for her father. These were kids who needed something real, something from the heart. "Hi, everyone," Riley said softly, giving a small wave. "I brought some things to share with you." 10-year-old Marcus, who had been receiving leukemia treatment for 8 months, was the first to speak up from his wheelchair. "Are you really Stephen Curry's daughter? My nurse said you might be coming." Riley nodded, but instead of talking about basketball, she surprised everyone. "Yeah, but I'm here because I wanted to meet all of you. I heard you're all really brave, and I thought maybe we could be friends." The ice began to break as Riley distributed her handmade friendship bracelets, taking time to talk with each child individually. She listened as 7-year-old Emma explained her artwork hanging on the wall, and laughed with 12-year-old Jordan about his favorite video games. As the afternoon progressed, Riley found herself genuinely connected to these children. Their resilience amazed her, and their ability to find joy despite their circumstances touched something deep in her young heart. When Maria suggested they might enjoy hearing Riley sing, something she was known for among Warriors fans, Riley felt that familiar nervous flutter again. But looking around at the expectant faces, some showing the exhaustion of treatment, others brightening with hope, Riley knew she wanted to give them something special, something that came from her heart, not from her fame. "Okay," she said quietly, standing in the center of the circle. "But I want you all to sing with me if you can." The room fell silent except for the distant sounds of the hospital. Riley closed her eyes for a moment, thinking of a song that would mean something to everyone present. When she opened them again, her voice began, soft and clear, filling the room with a melody that spoke of hope, friendship, and the strength found in difficult times. As her voice carried through the pediatric ward, nurses paused in their rounds, doctors stopped at the doorway, and parents who had been waiting anxiously in nearby rooms found themselves drawn to the sound. But Riley only saw the faces of the children around her, some singing along softly, others just listening with expressions of pure joy. None of them knew that in a corridor not far away, Stephen Curry had quietly arrived at the hospital, having finished practice early. He had come to pick up his daughter, but hearing her voice echoing through the halls, he stopped to listen, his heart swelling with pride at the young woman his daughter was becoming. What none of them could anticipate was the surprise he had been planning, a surprise that would transform this already special day into something none of them would ever forget. Riley's voice filled every corner of the activity room as she sang "Count on Me" by Bruno Mars, a song about friendship and being there for each other. Her 8-year-old voice, while not professionally trained, carried something more valuable than perfect pitch. Genuine emotion and love. As she sang the chorus, something magical began to happen. Marcus, despite his fatigue from chemotherapy, started tapping his fingers on his wheelchair to the rhythm. Emma, who had been quiet and withdrawn since starting her treatment, began humming along. Even the youngest patient, 5-year-old Tyler, who rarely spoke since his diagnosis, was swaying gently in his hospital bed. "When you're tired and feeling small, I will be your friend. I'll be there through it all," Riley sang, making eye contact with each child as she moved around the circle. The lyrics seemed to resonate with everyone present, creating an atmosphere of warmth and connection that transcended the clinical setting of the hospital. Dr. Jennifer Walsh, the head of pediatric oncology, had paused her rounds when she heard the singing. She stood in the doorway watching as her young patients, children who faced daily battles with pain, fear, and uncertainty, transformed before her eyes. In her 15 years of treating children with cancer, she had seen how rare these moments of pure joy were, and how healing they could be. Aisha watched from a corner of the room, tears gathering in her eyes as she observed her daughter's natural empathy and the way she connected with these brave children. This visit had been entirely Riley's idea, born from her desire to meet kids who need friends, as she had put it to her parents. As the song came to an end, the room erupted in applause and cheers. But instead of taking a bow, Riley immediately sat down on the floor next to Marcus's wheelchair. "That was really beautiful," Marcus said, his voice slightly hoarse from treatment. "I used to sing in my school choir before I got sick." "Do you want to sing something together?" Riley asked, her eyes lighting up with excitement. Marcus hesitated, touching his throat self-consciously. "I don't know if my voice is good anymore. The medicine makes it different." Riley leaned closer. "That's okay. Different doesn't mean bad. Do you know you've got a friend in me?" Marcus's face broke into the first genuine smile he'd shown in weeks. "From Toy Story? That's my favorite movie." Soon Riley and Marcus were singing together, their voices blending in perfect harmony despite the differences in their tones. Other children began joining in, some singing loudly, others just mouthing the words, but all participating in their own way. Emma, who had been battling lymphoma for 6 months, surprised everyone by standing up from her beanbag and starting to dance. Her movements were slow and careful due to her treatment, but her joy was infectious. Soon, other children who were able began moving to the music, creating an impromptu dance party in the middle of the oncology ward. Nurse Patricia Williams, who had been working with these children for years, found herself wiping away tears as she watched from the nursing station. "In 20 years of working here, I've never seen them all this happy at the same time," she whispered to a colleague. The afternoon continued with Riley and the children sharing stories, drawing pictures together, and playing simple games. Riley learned about their treatments, their fears, and their dreams. Marcus wanted to be a music teacher when he grew up. Emma missed her pet hamster, Buttercup, who she couldn't see while in treatment. Tyler, the youngest, just wanted to go home and play with his trucks. But what struck Riley most was their incredible strength. These children faced things that would terrify adults, yet they found reasons to laugh, to hope, and to care for each other. She watched as the older kids helped the younger ones, as they shared snacks and toys, and as they offered comfort when someone felt scared or sad. "You're all so brave," Riley said during a quiet moment when they were sitting in their circle again. "Braver than any superhero." "We don't feel brave," said Jordan, a 12-year-old who had been fighting bone cancer for over a year. "We just don't have a choice." Riley thought about this for a moment. "But that's what makes you brave. Doing something even when you're scared, even when it's hard. That's the bravest thing of all." As the afternoon wore on, the children began sharing their own talents with Riley. Emma showed her drawings she had made, including one of a rainbow that she said represented hope. Marcus played a simple melody on a small keyboard that the hospital provided. Even quiet Tyler showed Riley his collection of toy cars, explaining which one was his favorite and why. The atmosphere in the room had transformed completely. What had started as a formal visit had become something much more meaningful, a genuine connection between children who, despite their different circumstances, understood what it meant to need friendship and support. Unknown to everyone in the room, Stephen Curry had been quietly observing from the hallway for the past hour. He had planned to surprise Riley by showing up early, but seeing her in action, truly making a difference in these children's lives, he realized this moment was about much more than a celebrity visit. This was his daughter discovering her own capacity for compassion and leadership. But Stephen had his own surprise planned, one that he hoped would bring even more joy to these remarkable children. He quietly stepped away to make a phone call, setting in motion something that would make this day unforgettable for everyone involved. As the afternoon progressed, the energy in the room had shifted from cautious curiosity to genuine warmth and friendship. Riley had completely forgotten about any nervousness she'd felt earlier. She was now sitting cross-legged on the floor, surrounded by children who were sharing their deepest thoughts and dreams with her. "Sometimes I pretend I'm not sick," admitted Sarah, a 9-year-old with brain cancer who had joined the group midway through the visit. "I close my eyes and imagine I'm at school with my friends or at home playing with my little brother." Riley nodded seriously. "That sounds like a good way to feel better. What do you miss most?" "Pizza parties at school," Sarah said with a wistful smile, "and sleepovers with my best friend Jessica. She can't visit because of my immune system." This sparked a conversation among all the children about the things they missed most. Marcus talked about playing soccer with his teammates. Emma missed her art class and her teacher, Mrs. Rodriguez, who always encouraged her creativity. Tyler simply missed playing at the park with his dad. Riley listened intently to each story, her young heart breaking and swelling at the same time. These children had taught her more about courage and resilience in one afternoon than she had learned in her entire 8 years of life. "You know what?" Riley said suddenly, standing up with determination. "I want to do something special for all of you." The children looked at her expectantly as she walked to the center of the circle again. "I want to sing one more song, but this one is going to be different. This one is going to be our song, about all of you, about how amazing you are, and about how you've taught me what real strength looks like." Aisha watched from across the room, amazed at her daughter's maturity and emotional intelligence. This was not the performance-oriented child she had known at Warriors games. This was a young girl who had found her purpose in bringing joy to others. Riley began singing an adapted version of "Stronger" by Kelly Clarkson, but she changed some of the lyrics to make them more appropriate and meaningful for her audience. "You are stronger than you know, braver than you feel. Every day you show the world that hope is always real." As she sang, something extraordinary happened. One by one, the children began standing up, those who could, or sitting up straighter in their beds and wheelchairs. They weren't just listening. They were claiming the song as their own, their faces showing a pride and strength that transcended their physical struggles. Marcus started harmonizing with Riley, his changed voice actually adding a beautiful depth to the melody. Emma began clapping, encouraging others to join in. Even Tyler, who rarely participated, was moving his hands to the rhythm. Dr. Walsh, who had returned to check on her patients, stood frozen in the doorway, witnessing something she had never seen in her years of practice. The room was filled with such positive energy that it seemed to push back against the clinical sterility of the hospital environment. "Every scar tells a story. Every tear shows you care. You're the heroes of tomorrow, with love beyond compare." Riley's voice grew stronger with each verse, fed by the energy and response of her audience. But more importantly, she could see the children's belief in themselves growing too. They were sitting taller, smiling wider, and looking at each other with newfound respect and admiration. When the song ended, the applause was thunderous, not just from the children, but from the growing crowd of hospital staff, parents, and visitors who had gathered to listen. The sound echoed through the corridors, bringing smiles to faces throughout the pediatric ward. "Thank you, Riley," said Jordan, speaking for the group. That was exactly what we needed to hear." Riley felt her eyes fill with tears, not sad tears, but tears of joy and fulfillment. "Thank you for letting Me be your friend, she replied. You've all taught me so much today. Maria Santos, who had been coordinating the visit, approached the group with her own eyes moist with emotion. Children, I think this has been one of the most special afternoons we've ever had here. Riley, your kindness and your music have brought something beautiful to our hospital today. As the formal part of the visit began to wind down, the children were reluctant to say goodbye. They had found something precious in this connection with Riley. Not because she was famous, but because she had treated them as equals, as friends, and as the remarkable individuals they were. Will you come back and visit us? Asked Emma, voicing what everyone was thinking. Riley looked at her mother, then back at the children. I promise I'll come back, and maybe next time, some of you can teach me some of your favorite songs. The children cheered at this prospect, already planning what they would share with Riley on her next visit. But as they began exchanging final hugs and saying their goodbyes, none of them noticed Stephen Curry quietly entering the room behind them. He had spent the last hour making phone calls and arrangements, and he was carrying something that would make this day even more memorable. The surprise he had planned was about to unfold, and it would demonstrate to these brave children, and to his own daughter, that the power of community and caring could create miracles that had nothing to do with magic, but everything to do with the human heart. Stephen Curry stood quietly at the entrance of the activity room, taking in the scene before him. His daughter was in the middle of saying goodbye to her new friends, promising to return soon, when she finally noticed him. "Daddy!" Riley exclaimed, running over to give him a hug. "I didn't know you were here. Did you hear us singing?" "I heard every note, sweetheart," Stephen said, wrapping his arms around his daughter. "I'm so proud of you." The children in the room began to buzz with excitement, recognizing the NBA superstar, but Stephen quickly redirected their attention. "Actually, I'm not here as a basketball player today," he said, addressing the group. "I'm here as Riley's dad, and as someone who wanted to meet the amazing kids she's been telling me about." He walked into the center of the room, and instead of talking about basketball or fame, he sat down on the floor at the children's level, just as Riley had done. "Riley told me about all of you. Marcus, who wants to be a music teacher. Emma, who creates beautiful art. Tyler, who loves trucks. Sarah, who misses pizza parties," he said, naming each child individually. "She told me about your courage, your kindness to each other, and your incredible strength." The children listened intently, surprised that this famous athlete was speaking to them so personally and genuinely. "I wanted to do something special for all of you," Stephen continued, "because Riley helped me understand that you're the real champions here. You fight battles every day that most adults couldn't handle, and you do it with grace and hope." He gestured toward the doorway, where hospital staff were wheeling in several large boxes. "I know you can't always leave the hospital to have fun experiences, so I thought we'd bring some experiences to you." The first box was opened to reveal brand new art supplies, professional-grade colored pencils, sketchbooks, paints, and canvases. Emma's eyes went wide with amazement. "Emma, I heard you're an artist," Stephen said. "These are for you and anyone else who wants to create. Art heals hearts, and I have a feeling you're going to create some masterpieces." The second box contained musical instruments, keyboards, guitars, drums, and other instruments sized appropriately for children. Marcus's mouth fell open in shock. "Marcus, Riley told me about your dream to be a music teacher. Maybe you can start teaching right here, helping other kids discover the joy of music." But Stephen wasn't finished. The third box contained an entire collection of toy trucks, cars, and building sets. Tyler, who had been quietly observing, suddenly became animated with excitement. "Tyler, I know you love trucks. These are yours to play with and share with your friends here." The children were overwhelmed with gratitude, but Stephen held up his hand gently. "There's one more thing," he said, pulling out his phone. "I've been talking to some very special people who wanted to meet all of you." The phone screen lit up with a video call, and suddenly the children were face to face with several of Stephen's Warriors teammates, all waving and calling out greetings. "We heard about the amazing kids at Children's Hospital Oakland," said Draymond Green from the screen. "We wanted you to know that you're our heroes." Each player took a moment to speak directly to the children, not about basketball, but about their courage, their strength, and their importance. They shared personal stories about overcoming challenges and the importance of never giving up on dreams. But the biggest surprise was yet to come. "And," Stephen said, "there's someone else here who wanted to meet you." The door opened, and in walked the Warriors team mascot, along with the team's community outreach coordinator, carrying official Warriors jerseys customized with each child's name. "Every Warrior needs their armor," the coordinator said with a smile. "These are your official uniforms." The room erupted in cheers and laughter as each child received their personalized jersey. But more than the gifts, it was the personal attention, the individual recognition, and the genuine care being shown that truly moved everyone present. Dr. Walsh, who had seen many celebrity visits over the years, was astounded. "In my experience," she said quietly to Aisha, "most celebrity visits are photo opportunities. This is something entirely different. This is real, caring." Riley watched her father with newfound admiration. She had always known he was a great basketball player, but today she was seeing him as something more, as a person who used his platform to bring real joy and hope to people who needed it most. "Daddy," she whispered to him during the celebration, "this is the best surprise ever." Stephen knelt down to his daughter's level. "You know what the real surprise is, Riley? It's discovering that you have the power to change people's lives just by caring about them. You did that today, all by yourself, before I ever showed up." As the afternoon came to an end, the activity room had been transformed into something that looked more like a party than a hospital ward. Children were trying on their jerseys, exploring their new art supplies, and already making music together. The energy was infectious, spreading throughout the entire pediatric ward. But perhaps the most meaningful moment came when Marcus, still wearing his new Warriors jersey, approached the microphone that had been set up for the video call. "Mr. Curry, Riley," he said, his voice stronger than it had been all day, "thank you for showing us that we're not just patients. You helped us remember that we're kids and dreamers, and that our lives matter." The room fell silent as Marcus continued, speaking for all of his fellow patients. "We're going to keep fighting, and we're going to keep believing in our dreams. And whenever we feel scared or tired, we're going to remember today. We're going to remember that we have friends who believe in us." There wasn't a dry eye in the room as Marcus finished speaking. The children gathered together for a final group photo, wearing their jerseys and holding their gifts, but more importantly, wearing expressions of hope, joy, and renewed strength. As the Curry family prepared to leave, each child hugged Riley goodbye, making her promise once again to return soon. The connections formed that day would last far beyond the visit itself. "Riley," Sarah said during their goodbye hug, "you have a gift. Not singing, though that's beautiful. You have the gift of making people feel important." Walking out of the hospital that evening, Riley was unusually quiet. "What are you thinking about, sweetheart?" Aisha asked. Riley looked back at the hospital building, lights glowing warmly in the windows of the pediatric ward. "I'm thinking about how they said I was brave for coming here," she said thoughtfully. "But they're the brave ones. They face scary things every day and still find ways to laugh and dream and take care of each other." Stephen nodded, putting his arm around his daughter. "That's a very wise observation, Riley. And you know what? I think you helped them see their own bravery today." As they drove away, Riley was already planning her next visit, thinking about songs she could learn, stories she could share, and ways she could continue being a friend to the remarkable children she had met. Behind them in the hospital, the children were settling in for the night, but the atmosphere had changed completely. The gifts were wonderful, but the real transformation had come from being seen, valued, and loved for exactly who they were. In the days that followed, the story of Riley's visit would spread throughout the hospital and beyond, inspiring other young people to find ways to help and connect with those facing challenges. But for the children who were there that day, the most lasting impact was the reminder that they were not alone, that they had friends who cared about them, believed in them, and would be there to support them through their battles. The power of one 8-year-old girl's compassion, amplified by her family's commitment to service, had created ripples of hope that would continue to spread long after the last notes of her songs had faded from the hospital corridors.